Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth: A Day in Her Life. We've been visiting Princess May for a few episodes now, and it's based on the book called Queen Mary. In this video, we're going to hop back into our time machines and see what Princess May and her family were up to once Prince George and Princess May got married. When Mary became Duchess of York, or Princess May, I should say, she had the attention of the people, and Queen Victoria was pleased. She wrote, "This has been a very gay week." She was at Cowes, and it said that it was crowded with people, sailors, flags, 900 school children, and soldiers. And while at Osborne, Queen Victoria was less secluded. In the morning, she would have breakfast out in the garden under a parasol tent, and she had Indian servants, her Highlanders, her dogs, and a lady-in-waiting dressed in black. Every object on the table except her cup and saucer were made of solid gold. Princess May shared breakfast with her. Queen Victoria would ask her if she had heard from her mother, and May would say no, and then she wrote to her mother saying that she longed to get one line from her. Queen Victoria wrote about May that she was so unaffected and distinguished and dignified in her manner. She was civil to everyone. She said she was very pretty, and the more you see her, the more you liked and admired her. Queen Victoria looked well, and her complexion and smile and voice was like she was 20 years ago. But she was a bit lame and had trouble moving and getting around and getting out of her chair. Princess May noticed that while at Osborne for 2 weeks, Queen Victoria was making a fuss over her. The Queen's daughters were doing the same. So Princess May wrote to her mother, "All the aunts push me on and make such a fuss about me, while I laugh and say to myself, 'Dear me, how times have changed. 'Tis a funny world. Well, one lives.'" York Cottage was the private lives of Prince George and Princess May, and their public life was at York House, and that was economical. At St. James's Palace, they had a good chef, and their standard of living was high. Being a duchess and a duke, they were treated like oracles. Princess May's family and friends noticed a change in her. Before she married, she had high spirits, but she became more reserved than she was before after being married. Being watched constantly made her feel self-conscious, which is understandable. And barriers began to come up between Princess May and the real world. It was the last decade of her life during World War II that she managed to have contact with ordinary men and women again, and it made her happy. While May's mother was visiting her at York House, she fell down. It was a dangerous step from the night nursery and into the passageway, and she landed on her hands and knees, and the Duke of York said that there was a very good electric light, and it should have been turned on. So Princess Mary spent a lot of time at York House. She loved visiting her daughter, and she would also stay there if she wanted to meet up with someone in the city. Prince George, he didn't want to dine with his mother-in-law because he wanted to dine punctually, and as we knew from before, Princess Mary was never on time for dinner. Princess May, by 1894, was about to have her first child. The birth was to be around mid-June, and she was to have the baby at Buckingham Palace. Princess May and her husband moved to her parents' home in White Lodge. Princess May found the onset of maternity unsettling. Female members of the royal family wanted to talk about the baby to come, but Princess May didn't. Princess May was cold and stiff and not maternal, according to the Empress. The day arrived at last on June 23, 1894. Princess May had a son. Telegrams were going everywhere from White Lodge, and telegrams were also going to Windsor Castle with congratulations. Every royalty in Europe, every public body in Great Britain and the Empire sent congratulations. On June 27th, Queen Victoria, accompanied by family members, traveled to White Lodge by special train. After their visit, they returned a month later. This time it was for the christening. Queen Victoria and her grandson, Prince George, wrote letters about the child's name. Queen Victoria, of course, wanted the baby named after her husband, Albert, and Prince George and Princess May wanted to call him Edward after Prince George's brother Eddie. So the baby was christened Edward, Albert, Christian, George, Andrew, Patrick, David. Wow, what a name. Soon the family called him David. After spending 6 weeks at White Lodge, Princess May left England with her parents and her brother, Prince Algy, on August 4th, 1894. They went to St. Maritz for a month. The baby Prince Edward was left under the care of his nurses in Brucke at White Lodge. The Princess of Wales was a difficult mother-in-law, but so was Princess Mary Adelaide. While Princess May and Prince George were staying at White Lodge during June and July, she irritated Prince George. He wrote complaining in a letter, He called her Maria and said that she had been overshadowing their lives throughout the year. He said he was very fond of Maria, but he didn't want to go through those 6 weeks again. He said she would come in and disturb us, and she was unpunctual, and it annoyed him. He said she was always so kind to him, so he found it impossible to say anything. And while they were at St. James, she would run in and out, and Prince George felt he didn't get to see Princess May that much, and Princess May kind of agreed with him. And in her diary, Princess May wrote, "Mama came at 4 p.m. and stayed till 8 p.m. Not a single day passed without a call from Princess May's mother, and Princess Mary Adelaide had become accustomed to leaning on her daughter for advice and help, and she felt lost without her." Prince George wrote to Princess May that her mother forgets that you are married and only remembers that you are her only daughter. He wished that she would use more tact, and he told May that she might want to mention that in a casual way. And it wasn't just Princess Mary of Adelaide that missed their daughter. The Duke of Teck, her husband, did too. They couldn't adjust to life without her. The Duke was more cranky and difficult to deal with, and this had the Duchess of Teck feeling in a low, weak, and dispirited state. The birth of her grandson lifted her spirits, however. A few weeks after the birth of Prince Edward, Princess Mary found a new interest that kept her spirits up. Her eldest son was engaged to Lady Margaret Grosvenor, a daughter of the first Duke of Westminster, who was one of the richest men in the whole of England. Prince Adolphus of Teck was 26 and an officer in the 17th Lancers. He was in India from 1888 to 1890, and he startled his sister and his parents by his blonde good looks. By 1894, he was starting to go bald. He was adored by Princess May, and the Duke of York liked him, saying, "I never met a nicer fellow. I think him quite charming. He has excellent manners and is so quiet and nice, and he really shoots well." When Princess Mary got to spend time with Princess May, May wrote that poor Mama is so delighted to have me with her alone again. That makes up for a good deal and touches me deeply. The month that Princess May spent in Maritz made her happy. Princess May had been exhausted and Princess Mary depressed, and now she was happy too. They had freedoms there. Princess May said that this place is doing both Mama and me a world of good. The air is so refreshing. She wrote this letter to Prince George. "I hope I shall return quite strong again, but up till now my nerves are still somewhat shaky, which is a bore. We have made our room so pretty and comfortable, and mine is full of your and darling baby's photos." They had carefree days there, and they made expeditions in the carriages to find wild pinks or join the Leo Rothschilds on a picnic, or to admire the view down into Italy, or to watch eagles soaring in the clear blue skies around the mountain peaks. They had coffee in the inns and chalets and made purchases at familiar shops. In the evenings they went to concerts, or they had a private entertainment at the place they were staying. Princess May got back home to York House on the last day of August 1894, and Princess Mary went back to the Duke. Princess May had another baby boy in December of 1895. Princess Mary was ecstatic, and she wrote to her son Prince Algy in India that the great and greater Britain is ringing. What a boy! What a joy! He was to be Prince Albert, later to be King George VI. Princess George and Princess Mary didn't want a repeat of how things went with the birth of Prince David, so they arranged the birth to take place at York Cottage, and without the cooperation of Princess Mary, who wasn't invited to see her grandson till the first week of January 1896. Princess May conveyed to her mother tactfully that Prince George wished to see her alone, so in the afternoon Princess Mary walked or wrote till tea time, and she would then have tea with Princess May in the bedroom, remaining with her until George came up from his tea, and she, as she said, discreetly retired and wrote in the sitting room downstairs till dressing time. Queen Victoria thought that Princess May was very strong and thought that she got through things like it was nothing. The second son happened to be born on the death date of the Prince Consort, Queen Victoria's husband, that is. The Prince of York wrote to Queen Victoria that he knew that the day was an upsetting one for her, but he hoped that the birth of the baby would make the day a happier one. Prince George asked Queen Victoria's permission to call him Albert, after dear grandpapa. "It is a great pleasure for me that he is to be called Albert," the Queen told the Empress Frederick. She said, but in fact he could hardly have been called by any other name. Princess Mary wrote to her son Algy she didn't like the name Albert. The Queen had insisted on this name, but George will be his last name, and we hope some day may supplement the less favored one. Princess Mary and her husband had brought up their children carefully, wisely, and well. Princess May, Prince Dolly, and Prince Algy were doing well. Princess May was the Duchess of York. She was the mother of 2 sons and would one day be Queen of England. Prince Dolly was married to a rich lady and had a happy marriage, and he liked his army life. And Prince Algy, he was only 21, and he was a good soldier and seemed set for a distinguished career. But now we come to the second son. Prince Francis, or Frank, was another story. In his boyhood, he had been expelled from Wellington College for tossing a headmaster over a hedge. He never fit into the semi-royal life. He was the cleverest and the most amusing of the 3 tech princes. He had a sense of fun like his mother. He had her zest for life and her gift of descriptive writing. Unfortunately, he was bad with money like she was. Prince Frank was always in debt. He was nicely dressed on credit. He made racing bets, which was hard to win, and left him in more debt. In 1895, Prince Frank was urged by his parents to leave England, just as his parents had to do all those years ago. And he wasn't given a choice of where to go. He was told to go to India. He went to see Queen Victoria before he left and had lunch with her. The Queen said to Princess Mary that she had given him a photo of her just as Princess Mary had asked. Queen Victoria told him she hoped she would hear good accounts of him and that he would be steady in every way. He said he would try. Queen Victoria hoped that he could avoid temptation. Letters written to his family showed that he didn't think much of India. He felt that living there was meant to be an example of what to expect in the world below. So the letter was partly bitter and partly jovial. Princess May didn't understand his flippant attitude. Frank wasn't impressed by his sister's illustrious position. Frank was always the favorite son of Princess Mary. She loved his sense of humor and his cheerful disposition because it resembled her own personality. Prince Frank loved his mother, and he would get on her for not taking better care of herself. He wrote her, "Now I'm credibly informed that you've been more than naughty and that the doctors are distressed about you. All your friends tell me you don't look well, so you must take care of yourself and submit to injunctions and tell your charitable friends to go to HELL." So when he was in Dublin, he made a bad bet and he lost £10,000 that he didn't have, and he didn't even have £1,000 in which to gamble, and he would ask his family for help. So it was headed by Princess May, and they could always count on her to help the brothers with any money she could spare, and they rallied around him. The debt was settled, and he was in a happier mood then. The family wanted him in India. He was having a prolonged attachment to a much older married woman. She was gaining control of him. Prince Frank never did marry. As the years went by, he became alienated from his sister May. One reason being, after his mother's death, he had given the famous Cambridge emeralds to his elderly lady love, and another reason was that Princess May tried to help him with money and good advice. The Duke of York tried to help him financially, but Prince Frank found it hard to show his gratitude. When Prince Frank left the army, he didn't have a proper income or an occupation. Prince George wrote to Prince Dolly in 1906 that Prince Frank was losing his looks and becoming fatter, but he was as carefree and debonair as ever. He would buy his little nieces and nephews lavish presents at shops where he knew his parents had accounts. Prince Frank died suddenly from a mismanaged minor nasal operation. When he was ill, he and May had reconciled. She was Queen Mary by then, and in the years before his death, he found a vocation in working hard to raise funds for the Middlesex Hospital. He proved then to be a worthy son of his mother, Princess Mary Adelaide. So I'm going to stop the video here. Princess May and Prince George found themselves in exciting days, having not one but 2 sons. And they weren't the only ones excited. All the royal family was glad that there were future kings born to the family. Princess May and Prince George didn't like Princess Mary trying to spend so much time with May, but she loved the princess so much she was lost without her. We got to learn a little about her brothers and how Princess May was close to all of them and tried to help them financially if they needed it. So it's neat to see about Mary's family and how they interacted with each other. I'll continue to make more videos of Queen Mary and her family until we get to the death of her mother. The videos were mainly about Princess May and her family before she married, and the death of her mother will be the appropriate way to end. Their bond was very close, and it deserved looking into their relationship. It's also been good to see what the marriage between Prince George and Princess May was like, and how Queen Victoria was always in the mix of things. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. After this series is over, I'll go back to Queen Elizabeth II and see more about her, which is always a pleasure. It's been wonderful to see all the royal family members in their time and how important they were in keeping the monarchy going strong. I hope everybody's been having a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.